Good afternoon. My name is Jim Cunningham. I'm the interim minister here at St Andrews on the Terrace and chair of the trust, the St Andrews Trust for the Study of Religion and Society. And in those capacities, I welcome you to the lecture today. I want to welcome Dr. Zainal Bagir back. We were intrigued and interested in what he had to say last time, and felt there was a lot more he would like to say, so we asked him to come back and to do a lecture presentation on Islam in the West, democracy and conservative religion, the case for Islam. And so please welcome Dr. Bagir.
Hi. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me back to St Andrews. And I enjoyed very much the conversation last month with Noel. So it's a good opportunity for me to speak again here. So my topic, actually Noel suggested this topic because probably he found this title on the website of Victoria Religious Studies Department. It was a topic for a seminar I did there, but I tried to make some significant changes from the same topic, but with different contents. So, the questions about Islam and democracy is really an old question. It has been asked for quite a long time with many different answers, but it's still interesting for many people because of what is happening in many Muslim countries. So I'll try to look at this issue in a rather different way, making use of more recent research as well as illustrations from several countries. Especially, I hope we have time, I will go rather elaborate when I give the illustrations of Indonesia, one of the most populous Muslim country. Okay, so first, what is the question when we discuss about Islam and democracy? One popular question has been, is Islam compatible with democracy? Democracy understood as being a Western invention. Islam comes from different tradition, then is it compatible or not? But I think this question can be misleading because usually this kind of question tends to be asked to be answered normatively. That is by defining what democracy is, what Islam is, and then like for example, if people think that in Islam there is no separations between politics and religion, but democracy requires such a separation, then Islam could not be compatible with democracy. But I think this way of asking the question as well as answering it is problematic because there are three problematic assumptions behind this question as well as the way many people try to answer it. The first assumption is the reality that Islam is diverse, Muslims are diverse. So it's not the issue of defining what Islam is. How are you going to define what Islam is? Is Islam what Muslims do? If Islam is what Muslims do, then Muslims where? Because now Islam is already more than 1,500 years old. So the experience of Islam, the development of Islam has covered a very long history. First, from the early history of a small community in Mecca and then in Medina. These are two really different experiences. And then Muslims exist in many countries. And there are dynasties during this 1,500 years in different places of the world. And then there was colonialism, there was post-colonial era. So the experience of Muslims must be different in all these different places as well as different historical periods. And then, so today it exists. Muslims are in all parts of the world, whether as majority or as minority. The experience of Muslims as part of a majority Muslim community must be different from the experience of Muslim as minorities. And now there is really a sizable minority Muslims in non-Muslim countries, including, of course, in New Zealand. I think the number is increasing in Europe, in the US. In the US, it's among the most growing religion. So how do we find Islam? How do we define Islam? If you came across discussion in the internet, I think a few weeks ago, there was a big debate, very interesting debate, a talk show with Ben Affleck and a few other people. Well, sometimes people acknowledging that there is a diversity of Muslims, but then they define good Muslims as someone who is not fanatic, who is not conservative, who go against Islam. So good Muslims are defined as someone who go against Islam, because Islam is already defined as a bad religion containing problematic teachings, etc. The difficulty with this explanation is, of course, again, you cannot pinpoint Muslim. This is Muslim because there is a diversity of Muslims. And then another illustration, which I think is also very interesting, in New Zealand, 2 years ago, there is an opinion piece in Waikato Times which became a problem. I just heard it yesterday. It's a story about Malala Yousafzai, who recently got a Nobel Prize. And she was shot by Taliban. And the story basically puts Malala as the victim of Muslims, disregarding the fact that Malala herself is a Muslim. So here you see an event in which Islam is represented differently. It's represented in the personality of Malala, who declared herself as a Muslim, but also representations of Islam in Taliban. So which one is Islam? Can we make a decision, this is the true Islam, this is not the true Islam? Well, this kind of issue is always contested. So that's why it's always problematic to probably too easily pointing to a representation of Islam in the personalities of Muslims because of the diversity. And then secondly, this is a methodological point, also a problematic assumption, that what Muslims do is to be explained by reference to their religion. The fact is that people do things because of many reasons. I remember when we had conversation here last month, there was a question about treatment of atheists in the Muslim world, whether Muslim countries would accept atheists. Probably I didn't answer that question well because of time, but one important point we need to understand before answering that question is that if, like for example, I will give you the example of Indonesia. In Indonesia, atheism is not well received because there is well, a state ideology which defines the state as believing in God. So atheism basically doesn't have a place. But is it because of Islam? Is it because Indonesia is a majority Muslim country, or because of different things? When there is a treatment, bad treatment of women, for example, in some Muslim countries, is it because Islam teach that, or is it because of different reasons? The fact is that the majority of Muslim countries are now, they are also post-colonial states. So colonialism probably has something to do with these characteristics you find in many Muslim countries. Or probably it's a social reason, economic reason, political reason. So what Muslims do, or what a majority Muslim country do, is not necessarily could not necessarily be explained by reference to Islam. There may be different factors. Okay, and then the third assumption, which is I think it's important, is that both Islam and democracy are not unifocal. It's not only one. I already mentioned the diversity of Islamic traditions in terms of geographical locations, in terms of different historical periods, but also actually democracies is not one. You look at democracy in the United States, it's different from democracy in France. It's different from the Netherlands. It's different from democracy in Latin American countries, for example. So that's why the question whether Islam is compatible or not with democracy is problematic. Because each of these terms, they cannot be defined easily. So that is my first main points, and that's why I think the question of is Islam compatible with democracy can be misleading. So what is the alternative way to answer this question? The alternative way, and this is based on recent research, mostly research in political science on Islam and democracy, is based on many surveys, on many polls and others. Basically, it's empirical research. So rather than asking an abstract compatibility question, we may as well try to answer the question related to Islam and democracy by looking at the reality on the ground. What is happening in majority Muslim countries? That's one question. Look at what democracy is in states considered democratic and at majority Muslim countries, and then figure out what relations are there. And it's not easy even before you start this kind of research. You can expect there will be a diversity of answers because of different experiences in different Muslim countries. So is there democracy in the Muslim world? And if there is, what does it look like? One point which is a claim which many scholars has made is about the democracy deficit in the Muslim world. This is a general impression. If it's for example, there is a data that only 1 in 4 governments of Muslim majority countries is democratically elected. If that's true, why? Is it because of Islam or because of other reasons? And how do you explain this? Is it an issue of compatibility with Islamic teachings or an issue of modern political history? Before I showed some of this research, this is just to give you an idea of the distributions of Muslims, the diversity of Muslims. The majority Muslim, the most populous Muslim country in the world is not in the Middle East, it's not part of the Arab world, it's Indonesia, Southeast Asia. It has more than 200 million Muslims. If you combine all Arab countries, it's still less than the number of countries, than the number of Muslims in Indonesia. If you add that with the number of Muslims in Pakistan, in India, all of this in South Asia, not in Middle East, then you will see that actually thinking that Islam is best represented by Arab states, that's a mistaken impression. So, yeah, this is like, for example, Saudi Arabia, which is considered probably as the most representative Muslim state, but it only has 24 millions out of 1.3 billion Muslims in the world. So, one of the very interesting research which I will show you today, it's findings by Alfred, Stephen, and Robertson. It's based on the data on political performance in Muslim countries from the Freedom House and Polity Project. So they have this project of mapping democracies in the world. And what they found is that, first of all, the deficit of democracy is an Arab problem, not a universal Muslim problem. You see countries outside the Arab states, then you see different reality. And even if we accept this claim that the deficit of democracy is an Arab problem, still it cannot be immediately explained by reference to Islam. Because again, what happens in the Arab states also could not be totally explained by reference to Islam. A non-Arab Muslim majority country was almost 20 times more likely to be electorally competitive than an Arab Muslim majority country. This is one of the findings. And then what is also interesting, 31 Muslim majority non-Arab countries make up the single largest block of countries of electoral overachievers relative to the level of economic development. So if you compare these non-Arab Muslim majority countries with other countries with similar level of economic development, then these majority Muslim countries actually, they are overachievers. They are over-democratic in a sense. So there is another interesting finding. And then another a huge research, this is a global research produced by Gallup poll, probably the most prominent polling agency in the world, based in the US. It's interesting to see the kind of questions they pose and the answers. So I'll just show some of this question. So Gallup poll survey of 50,000 people, representing 90% of 1.3 billion Muslims who reside in more than 35 nations that are predominantly Muslim or have sizable Muslim populations. One question, in drafting a constitution, we will guarantee freedom of speech. 90% in Indonesia say yes, 94% in Egypt, 93% in Iran. Iran as one of the Islamic republic, Islamic state. So this is a big number compared to the same surveys taken in other countries. Another question. Women should have the same legal rights and rights to vote as men. 90% in Indonesia, 87% in Iran, 70% in Pakistan. So now you already see some diversity. Indonesia is different from Iran, it's also different from Pakistan, but the number is relatively still high. And then Sharia or Islamic law should be a source, but not the only source of legislation. 55% in Jordan, in Egypt 66%, in Iran 13%, in Indonesia only 14%. Now you can see a pattern emerging, especially in the case of Indonesia. If you compare this with the US, it's also coming from the Gallup poll. 46% of US citizens, they say that Bible should be a source of legislation. And 9% say that it should be the only source of legislation. 42% religious leaders should have a direct role in writing a constitution. So if you compare these numbers, then you see the problem with the assumptions I mentioned earlier. And the picture which emerged from this service, as well as a number of other research, is that first, there is a diversity among majority Muslim countries. Islam is not the sole determinant of what happens in majority Muslim countries or whether a country is democratic or not. Majority Muslims, Muslim individuals are for democracy, if you combine the number from different countries. But it's also very interesting, at the same time they are also for Sharia or Islamic law. Now, one question which many people ask, they found it as paradoxical. How can one is for democracy but at the same time for Sharia? This is paradoxical if you think that Sharia is always anti-democratic or Islamic law is always anti-democratic. Before I explain this further, I'd like to see some other theoretical insights from different studies. I'm showing you here some studies from Alfred Stephen and Ahmed Guru, both are prominent political scientists. This is the logics they are trying to put forward. First, when you discuss about the relation between democracy and religion or secularism, you need to make a distinction between variants of secularisms. Not all secularisms are hostile to religion. The secularism in France is different from the secularism in the United States, different from secularism in Netherlands and other European countries. Secondly, and this is what they found from a number of different research, democracy does not require strong, rigid, or assertive or separatist secularism. Not all non-secular countries are non-democratic. Some non-secular countries are democratic. Secondly, not all secular countries are democratic. So being secular is not a guarantee that you are democratic. And being democratic is also not a guarantee that you are secular. And that there can be a non-liberal, non-secular, but democratic country. There will be some examples here. So the tension between democracy and religion was partly based on a supposition of a secular basis for democracy. That is that democracy requires secularization, and secularization is making religion ineffective or discarding religion. Alfred Stepan gives example that even in developed democracies, there are different models of the relation between state and religion. In Europe, for example, there are three models. France is a separatist, secular country, but Sweden, Denmark, Norway, they have established religions. But still, even though they have established religions, they are democratic. And then Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, Germany, they have different models of state-religion relation. They have what Stepan calls as positive accommodations. They are not secular in France sense, a different kind of secularism than the one you find in France. Religious education, for example, is funded by the state. So this is what is called by positive accommodation. And then, so these are three models in Europe. And then Stepan says that there can be a fourth model. And this is the model that, and maybe there will be five models, six models, but at least there is this one model which he found in some Asian and African countries, including majority Muslim countries, in this case in Indonesia and Senegal. The fourth model, for example, I will not talk much about it, but just to give an illustration of the possibility of different models of democracy, different models of state-religion relation in a democracy. This model, it has three characteristics: respect all. That is, the countries are very diverse in terms of religion. Many European countries actually homogeneous compared to many Asian countries in terms of religion. But these religions are very these countries are very diverse religiously. In these countries, there's one overwhelming majority, but no one established religion. India, well, India is not a majority Muslim country, of course, but it embodies similar model. It's a majority Hindu country, but Hinduism is not an established religion. It's not an official religion. In Indonesia, almost 90% of the citizens are Muslims, but Islam is not the official religion. The second characteristic is positive cooperations. There is state funding, and there is also religious support for policies. So it's not strictly secular in the sense of separating religion and state. But there is also principled distance, which basically state taking distance from religions. In India, it's called as states taking equal distance to different religions. So Alfred Stepan's conclusion is that to have a democracy, you don't need secularism, but what you need is twin toleration. By twin tolerations, he means the minimal boundaries of freedom of action that may somehow be crafted for political institutions vis-à-vis religious authorities, and for religious individuals and groups vis-à-vis political institutions. So it doesn't have to be separations, but it's good enough if you have some distance between the state and religion. So religion is not influencing the state, but the state also does not regulate the religion completely. So the challenges now. The discussion so far has shown two important points. The statement on the deficit of democracy in the Muslim world need to be qualified. It's not true all across the whole Muslim world. And then secondly, in a Muslim majority democracy, the relation between state and religion varies, just as in the Western countries. So there is diversity of models. Muslim majority countries is not an exception. The remaining challenges for emerging democracies in the Muslim world concern the issues of how to work out particular values and policies, such as on gender equality, treatment of non-Muslims and Muslims, non-conformists, and also freedom of expression. This is some of the problems which you find in many Muslim majority democratic countries. Even though based on those research they are claimed as democratic, but being democratic doesn't mean that you solve all problems. The fate of democracy as well as values and policy on those issues will mostly owe to the internal Muslim debate. The outcomes will most probably be different from the liberal norms known in the Western world. Just as you cannot expect that democracy in the US is the same as France, the way treatment of minority religions is the same across all these different European countries, it would also be most probably be the same in these different Muslim majority countries. So should we be optimists or pessimistic looking at these challenges? I will close this my lecture with some illustrations. I mentioned earlier that the outcomes will most probably be this is mostly an internal Muslim debate. Now, if you look at this internal Muslim debate, how does it look like? Should we be optimists or pessimists? So these are just some of the illustrations. First, there is this scholar, Abdullah An-Naim, who is, he starts with the assumption that as a Muslim, he needs Sharia. To be a good Muslim, he has to perform Sharia. But then he also say that the main issue is how do you understand Sharia? This is a big issue. Is Sharia simply cutting hands of thieves, for example, or stoning adulterous women, for example? Or Sharia is a broader issue. And then also, if you have an aspiration for Sharia, how do you implement that in a democracy? Is there a democratic mechanism for Sharia? So he struggled with this question, and he has very interesting thoughts on this issue. Another interesting illustration, this is a topic which I discussed yesterday in Human Rights Symposium at Victoria. There is an interesting debate on defamation of religion and intolerance, which was initiated by the Organizations of Islamic Cooperations, which has taken place for 15 years in the United Nations. It's very interesting because you see polarizations between Muslim countries and Western countries in these debates in the United Nations. But in the end, there was some agreements in creating a resolution on combating intolerance. This resolution was accepted by United Nations General Assembly for 3 years now. This refers to how Muslim minorities are treated in Western countries, and then part of the motivations for this resolution is also affairs like the Danish cartoon affairs, the some of the films created in Europe as well as the US, which basically portray Muslims as uncivilized and others. How do you deal with this kind of issues? So this is discussed in the United Nations, and at some point there is some agreement. So this is, I think, another interesting development which can be a source of optimism, that you have that you can have an agreement on some of these controversial issues. And then another illustrations is the creation of a common word. This is a document issued by more than 100 mainstream Muslim scholars all around the globe in Jordan a few years ago. Basically, it's an invitation to dialogue with Christians. It's another sign of optimism, I say, because it's a Muslim initiative, and it's well accepted by many Christians. It's an avenue for dialogue. In the case of Indonesia, last illustration, there have been debates on the matter of Sharia, on blasphemy, etc., which was made possible only after democratizations in 1998. It's not a finished discussion, but I think it's also another source of optimism, because at least now some of these controversial issues are being discussed openly. When it's being discussed, then there is a better probability of finding solutions. So I'll stop there with these illustrations, and I think there's still some time for discussions. So yeah, thank you very much.